Okay, now say all that again. How to make soap? You could tell me how to make soap.
Oh,
So
I just said it once. Well,
how do you start?
um, you can use different fats. I mean, I mentioned biodiesel in there. You use the different fats, either beef tallow or pork lard, vegetable oils or whatever. It's like,
Okay, so we're gonna get a big piece of fat and we're gonna
well, if you're
cook
using
it down
animal
and
fat,
strain out
you chop it up in a
oil.
crock pot. You render it down. Take off your cracklings and filter it if you want. Let it cool off and put your flavorings in, and mix it with the lye, sodium hydroxide, which is is a chemical reaction that both elements are changed. It's no longer sodium hydroxide. That's why it's only dangerous when you're taking the lye out of its container and putting it into the oil. Once it's in the oil and it's mixed up, it's like both the oil and the sodium hydroxide become different chemicals altogether. So that reaction is what.
So your basic ingredients are just
oil, some kind of grease or oil or fat.
Right.
Like
so let's say we're going to use animal fat,
lard or beef fat, yeah,
whatever, and then sodium hydroxide.
And sodium hydroxide.
Those are your basic main ingredients.
Lye or drain openers, other other terms.
But you want to make the most non-toxic soap there is, and then you want to add good essentials and other maybe gritty things like coffee or oatmeal
and there's lots of videos
things
on
for scrubbing. Turmeric is a popular one nowadays to add to soap.
Yeah, but I think you would add those into your like once you've rendered out the fat and it's cooling off.
You'd mix in your essentials.
I found a crock pot works pretty good because I could set it overnight and it'd render out the fat and you just take off the cracklings. I didn't even filter the one I did.
You do that before you put the...
Should filter it, probably.
Sodium hydroxide?
Well, at the last minute, like, because when you add that sodium hydroxide and then you use the immersion blender to whip it up real good.
It starts to thicken up.
Well, it thickens up right away, so you want to, like, basically as soon as you mix your lye in it, you get it into your molds. I had those rubber...
So what are the ratios of oil molds to sodium hydroxide?
Oh, that depends on the weight. You look up the formula. There's a calculator online that you measure to the gram, literally your amount of your oil that you have, and then the formula will tell you how much lye to use for that amount of oil. So there's actually a specific ratio that you use, and you have to use the calculator depending on how much fat you have. So it is that technical as far as how much lye. That's a good question because you actually want to weigh how much fat you have so that you then plug it into the calculator formula and get exactly how many grams, like it's to the gram. So you need a scale to measure your lye.
And the lye comes in a powdered form.
Yeah, it's just like a white powder, crystallized like powder type stuff.
And then there's a process of making the lye non-toxic, inert, once it's mixed in. And what's that called?
Well, it's just when it react. Anytime a chemical reacts with another chemical, it's going to become another different chemical. That's what. So what you're referring to is the process of transesterification. It's a term I learned in biodiesel industry. That it's just the process of separating the fatty acid esters away from the glycerin, so that you make biodiesel that way. And it's called transesterification. Transester, because you're breaking the esters off of the, so in the process it's transesterification. So yeah, it sounds like a big word, but it's really simple.
And your byproduct of that is glycerin?
Yeah, you get biodiesel and glycerin. They would take just restaurant fryer oil. They get grease.
Is transesterification?
Right. That's exactly it. Exactly.
And you make glycerin
any kind of
and
oil
biodiesel both that way?
Right. Well,
or there's a process.
I suppose you can just take the oil itself and mix sodium hydroxide and blend it together and make soap and other products. But in biodiesel, you're separating, so it's like goes through a process that you're actually separating the esters from the glycerin. A glycerin is a byproduct, your byproduct of making biodiesel. Because you're separating that waxy glycerin stuff off the oil.
So what is there's another way to make soap. And you could also use coconut oil or
any fat or oil
olive oil or sunflower seed oil,
vegetable oil. Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I mean, I would recommend coconut oil.
And you could mix your essential oils into your soap. Like I used lard, and that you could mix your essential oils toward the end so that
and there's mixing. Something else that you can put in it beside the lye or the sodium hydroxide.
Well, that's just the basics of making soap. If you're mixing other oils or whatever, that comes in at the end. You just use a few drops or whatever. So, I mean, there's videos on YouTube. You'll want to research a bit, but at least that's most important is the ratio of lye that you use for it. You have to use that calculator. There's a couple of websites I can't remember now, but I'm sure you could just search on the thing, find the lye soap. There's a couple of soap sites, websites that have supplies.
Oh, very cool. Thank you.
What about soap?
Transesterification.
Yeah, it's